安排合作。收到尺寸的行李，请放在上方置物箱，小心行李。
Currently, the weather is cloudy with rain temperatures around 18 degrees Celsius. Later, the opportunity our updated weather information. Right now, please make yourself comfortable and secure flight with well seated return aboard.
Dear passengers, thank you for waiting. This is True Passenger Joanna Shaw speaking. Welcome aboard the EVA Airways Liberty Jet, a Starlines member, flight BR088 to Taipei.
欢迎搭乘长荣航空，您的安全对我们非常紧要。
Prohibited on this flight, including the use of e-cigarettes and similar devices.
传输电子用品
Flight mode or turned off. Please remove any face covering.
Dear passengers, will be taken off shortly. Please fasten your seatbelt. Thank you.
电线未阻碍通道，并系上安全带。谢谢。Ladies and gentlemen, we are preparing to land. Please ensure your seat back is in the upright position.
Devant vous, rangez votre télécommande, vérifiez qu'aucun câble ne gêne le passage et attachez votre ceinture. Merci.
Dear passengers, we have tried to get home, but Tokyo International Airport.
Apologies for your delay and thank you for patiently understanding.